Good morning, and welcome to our session entitled Bridging the Digital Divide, Ensuring Inclusive Frontier Technology for Climate Action, which has been coordinated in partnership with the International Telecommunication Union, World Meteorological Organization, Fraunhofer Heinrich Hertz Institute, and Climate Change AI. As you know, today is the Capacities for Climate Innovation Day. Therefore, this session will look at the promise and challenges presented by AI with an emphasis on efforts to support capacity building and promote digital equality. We will also look at how AI can contribute to fundamental human rights, including the right to life and the right to an adequate standard of living. Next slide, please. Okay, to help us, we have experts from many different sectors, academia, private sector, NGO, GO, and UN agency joining us, which is gonna give us many different perspectives. Because it's awkward for me to turn around, I might just ask each of you to take the mic and just say your name and where you are. Is that okay?
So my name is Loran Saran. I'm with the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, based in Vienna, Austria.
My name is Elena Xoplaki. I'm from the Justus Liebig University in Gießen in Germany.
My name is Patrick Büker. I'm working for the GIZ in Germany, International Development Corporation. Thank you.
My name is Salman Ghaffarian. I'm lecturer at Department of Risk and Disaster Reduction from University College London. Thank you.
My name is Maria João Souza. I serve as Executive Director of Climate Change AI. We are a bit all over the world, but I'm personally based in New York.
Good morning. My name is Anil Misra from UNESCO's Intergovernmental Hydrological Program. We are based in Paris.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us. We would also like to know who is with us in the audience today. So for that, we have created a Mentimeter. If you join Menti and give this code, or there are some printouts with a QR code on some of the tables, we'd love to know who is with us today. It's also warming up. All right, we'll leave that open while we proceed, but it's a good warm-up because we're going to have a couple other slides throughout this session. Some of you might recall that at COP28 last year in Dubai, the ITU, WMO, and UNEP had a session that also broached the topic of AI in disaster management. You might also recall a New York Times headline that the climate summit embraces AI with reservations. Seeing the program for COP29, we can see that AI remains a hot topic. So let's dive right in. Many of you are working directly on projects related to AI in the context of climate and disaster resilience. I'd love to know, what is it about AI that attracts so much attention in the climate and disaster space? And what do we believe or observe that AI can offer? First, I'm going to jump to the audience. And thank you for giving your responses. How do you think that AI can support climate and disaster resilience? Okay, predicting disasters. You can see lots of typing. What we're going to do is we're going to jump to the experts on the stage and ask them while you're still giving your responses. Elena, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. I know that you are heavily involved in projects on AI for disaster management, also AI for climate services. Can you tell us a little bit about how you see AI providing value in those projects?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Monique. Indeed, in the 3 large-scale projects where I am involved, AI is one of the most important methods that we are applying. We are using AI to create a multi-hazard early warning system, as in the Medusa project, offering climate services, as in the Clean project, or to create actually these 8 digital twins for the case study areas that the Carmine project is using, actually looking into natural and nature-based adaptation solutions in metropolitan areas in Europe. An example, the Medusa project, for example, is using AI in order to increase the skill, increase the skill of seasonal forecasts by correcting, by putting them to the resolution that it is most appropriate to do impact forecasting for areas that are vulnerable, bridging Europe with Africa, with Northern Africa, with Ethiopia, and then trying to identify extreme events, detect extreme events, forecast, but even further to go more to the detection of impact, which is actually what Medusa is doing. And all those and these impacts that are forecasted are actually put together to release warnings for the areas that are most in need. So there's a lot that we are based our work on AI, and in all cases, which is extremely important for us, we are trying to use hybrid physics-informed methods, which are actually taking into consideration the climate system dynamics, and then at the same time, they make use of the power of Earth observations and artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Saman, I'm going to ask you next. I know you've been doing some exciting projects using AI, XAI, and digital twins in the context of disaster resilience and recovery. I often see the Agile project presented. Can you tell us a little bit more about your research in this space and where you see AI contributing?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. Let me start from my aspiration point as an academician. I start with the point of, can AI reduce the risk actually? Because all the reason that we are doing the projects, we are just, ultimate goal is, can we use AI to reduce the risk finally, in all aspects. I'm not really looking at any of them. But coming to what we are actually doing, what I have done, or what we are actually doing right now, for example, in Agile project that you already mentioned, we are, because of the AI that have some powerful capabilities that provide for us in terms of addressing the complexity of the risks that we are what we are facing right now. It provides some capabilities that the traditional methods cannot really match right now. For example, in Agile, the Agile is standing for agnostic risk management for high impact, low probability events. We talking about low probability events that's actually opposing with the AI systems, because when we say low probability events, then we have rare events. We don't have such a data to train our AI models and then do some experience through these machine learning algorithms. But then how we can use this? We use actually generative AI. For example, within Agile project to generate scenarios for rare case. Let's say, how does it help for us? We actually can do from theory-based modeling, but AI, generative AI, we are using it for realistic or unbiased. Let's say the biases could be on gender biases, or let's say not trying to fostering the inequalities in Agile. So one of the use cases that we are using in Agile is using generative AI to create actually the more realistic, unbiased simulations, and also the other aspects using machine learning for classifying the help events, also using the AI and machine learning algorithms to process the data, actually provide the information that we need. Yeah, thank you.
Great examples. Thank you so much. Anil, I hear that UNESCO has been working on a review to better understand how AI can be applied for hydrology. Can you tell us what kinds of insights you've been able to acquire from that process?
Yeah, thank you very much. In hydrological sciences, at least machine learning has been used historically. I give you an example, perspective. Climate change brings the scenario is very erratic. And we call, in hydrological terms, stationarity is dead. What does that mean? That means that past is no longer relevant to future projections. You may have a 100-year flood design, but this frequency may be every second year, every third year. How to find a solution through the machine learning so that you can actually predict your prediction within the range. So in order to do that, we've been using machine learning methodologies and artificial intelligence to find the solutions, but also to fill the data gap using citizen science. Finding now with this local sensor, you can really get data from the local conditions, the ground situ data, and then including that into the observation models that you get from Earth observation. So we are using that. And we are also reviewing what are the challenges of hydrological modeling so that you can actually narrow down your prediction range. And that can provide workable solution to the countries. And hydrological forecasting, modeling extremes. So in those areas, we are already using, as I said, any hydrology trained hydrologist must have used optimization, neural network method, which are machine learning. Using now artificial intelligence, you can find the spots of those spots that can address the notion of stationarity or uncertainty. And for that reason, we are reviewing a publication in the use of AI for hydrological application, which is coming forward. Thank you very much.
And a follow-up question, when can we see the results of this review?
We have done survey, and we are now looking through the survey. Editorial process is going on. So I think by 2025 we should be able to publish the publication.
Fantastic. What a great resource for us to use. I'd like to move to Laurent, if that's okay. Earth observations are clearly a basis for many of the projects that we've heard of. What are your thoughts on the added value of AI when it comes to DRR?
Thank you. Well, as I mentioned, I represent the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, and there's a program we implement there called UN Spider. It has nothing to do with spiders. It's about space technologies for disaster management. And I honestly don't know, how many in the panel heard about UN Spider? Okay, there's one or two. Oh, actually, most of them. Good. I don't know about the audience. Yeah, that's good. We are, in fact, trying to connect the providers of space technologies data with the disaster management agencies on the ground. And there's a lot of work there because most of those countries, most of those disaster management agencies are not aware of these technologies, of these tools, of these data. We are soon coming up to 20 years since the major tsunami that affected Southeast Asia, as you remember. It was 2004, and I remember it took us 3 weeks to receive high-resolution imagery, to process it, to pass it on to our colleagues on the ground in Banda Aceh and elsewhere in Indonesia. And then it took them another week or two to process that data and get some kind of impact assessments out of it. Now we can do this within maybe minutes or hours using these technologies, using AI, the fact that a lot more data is available, a lot more high resolution data is available, it's faster reaching us. It still has a cost. That's a big challenge that we are still facing, how to get this data into the hands of the users quickly. But with these tools, with AI, with machine learning, we can get this the data processed quickly, and we can get results in the hands of the decision makers within hours, not within weeks, as I just described. So I think to me that's the most important. And then probably later we get to discuss accuracy and other things. I think it's also very important to make sure that what's being offered, it's not only 60-70% accurate, but a bit better, because otherwise people lose trust even before they start loving these tools. Yeah, I think I stop there for now, but probably we will have time for questions too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I just want to quickly mention some of the comments that were put in the Mentimeter for those who joined a couple minutes late. There's a QR code on the tables. Also, you can use the code that's at the top of the screen if you also want to contribute to this survey platform. So some of the ways that you've mentioned AI can support this domain is predicting disasters, supporting preparedness, accelerating climate solutions development. This is where the Clint project comes to mind, of course. Early warnings modeling, of course, Agile and Medusa fit in nicely there. And then collecting and organizing large amounts of data, which, of course, UN Spider knows a lot about. So thank you so much for your inputs. Let's look at the other side of the coin. What are some of the risks that we see that AI presents, particularly in the context of inequalities? Do we think that AI is going to narrow divides or widen them? And again, I'm going to see first what you in the audience think about this. Let's see if I can. It's vibrating, but not changing. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is an easy one, a yes or no question. So hopefully we get lots of feedback. And while the confetti are collecting, I'm going to ask the experts on stage to give us their thoughts. I'd like to start off actually with Patrick. What are your thoughts about how AI is going to impact these inequalities?
Yeah, many thanks, Monique. I would like to start on a positive note. So we are working at the GIZ, we're working in more than 100 countries worldwide, and we have a fairly large portfolio, and you can see that AI is actually becoming much more obvious in proposals. You can see that both the partners in the countries as well as our funders are requesting AI solutions more and more. And I'm mentioning this because there is no doubt as well within the GIZ that we have to work with AI. But we have to do it in a good, in a clever way. And I think why we can see these projects, for example, in the agriculture sector, looking at using AI, for example, to analyze imagery, to merge satellite, drone imagery and biomass data, for example, to look into deforestation, things like that. We have to acknowledge that there is an increasing divide, I think. I'm not quite sure how I would actually answer this question, but what you can see is that there are certainly some areas where even the access to the internet is still rather low. Globally, about 2/3 of people have access to the internet. In Africa, it's only about 40%. And this already, I think, gives some indication that AI solutions are, how they're at the moment developed at least, are not accessible to everyone. And I think it's really important that we make sure that we make AI solutions, like any other digitalization solutions, make them accessible to people. We have to make sure that people have access to data, that people are actually asked how to, as well, be involved more actively. We just heard the example of citizen science. This is something that is rather powerful, I think, and we've seen it as well within some of our projects, that especially the merging of, let's say, AI technologies with knowledge on the ground that is really fed into the systems. This is rather important. And I think the other thing is really that we have to make sure that we have the right infrastructure as well. Wherever AI is used, we have the right knowledge, we have the right capacity. Capacity both in terms of people who can actually develop and use AI, but as well in terms of hardware even. And we have to as well keep in mind, and this is something some of you might have been here on Saturday. It was the first COP Digitalization Day as well. And there the green AI movement was rather strong. So, and I think you can see already now what kind of effects in terms of resource use AI is having. And again, look at developing or least developed countries. They do struggle most in terms of providing the electricity, providing the power to run AI. So there are quite a few aspects we have to keep in mind to make AI really inclusive. And I stop there before giving some examples, maybe.
Okay, well, you raised some really excellent points from fundamental infrastructure up to the actual usage of the models after they've been trained. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask Anil's thoughts on this. How do you think that AI is going to impact these types of divides?
I think in terms of access and inequality, there are challenges but also opportunities. Challenges in terms of appropriate level of infrastructure accessible to all, particularly in the global south. And also community in our domain, in the hydrological scientific domain, hydrologists communicating with the AI algorithm developers and working together. So there are some rooms for improvement, and that's where we are doing. The opportunities, I think we need to understand now and bring together in open science platform. So that means that giving access to everyone, open validation, open calibration with the citizen science approach, because citizens can provide lots of information to fill the data gap that I said already. And if we put everything on open platform, probably we don't need to pay millions or billions of dollars for those very expensive softwares. This is possible now. So we really need to enhance our capacity, and because of the information technology development, availability of low-cost sensors, 3D printers, many of the data gap can be fulfilled at the local level, which will again support AI application for hydrological forecasting. So we would advocate for open science, engaging citizens in the process, for validation and calibration, but also capacity development and infrastructure development, particularly in the global south. Thank you very much.
Great points. Yeah, I mean, when you mention the citizen science, it makes me think of this study that was done in Haiti a couple of years ago under Rémy Bossu's team in France, using these Raspberry Pis, which they distributed to different households and let them see the seismic activity and track it themselves, and also see when events were taking place using AI. So certainly engaging with households, communities can only bring benefits. I did pick on Patrick and Anil directly, but I just wanted to ask if any of the other panelists wanted to add anything before we move to the next. Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to say that I agree with a lot of what has been said by my colleagues here, but I would also want to emphasize this really important need of not just having open source tools, but these open source tools being adapted to different infrastructure conditions, because we have seen a boom in open source tools, but often there's that digital divide of where they can be applied and who can actually use them effectively. And also stress, as my colleague, the need for capacity building so that we can see more of these bottom-up approaches where people are actually involved in creating the solutions that will downstream serve their needs as well.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I have to add something also because I think everything that was said is totally true, and I think also on the votes, majority think there will be a narrowing of that gap, which is good. But it also depends on how we do this going forward, because in my experience, in the last 20 years, we have had this mistaken belief, I would say sometimes, that users out there cannot use the data, we have to do everything for them. Certainly on the satellite imaging, on the Earth observation front, we were like offering maps and PDFs that we were just serving them because they can't do it. That's not true. There's a lot of expertise out there, and users everywhere around the world are learning more and more about these technologies. Yes, with some capacity building, some added support, we can enable them, empower them. So we want to make sure, I mean, at least from my side, I want to be sure that going ahead with the next 20 years with these AI technologies, it's not again going to be locked away and only available to some institutions that would be providing services. Everybody should have access to the tools, to the models, to the data behind it, and not just some privileged ones that are then providing the results. Let them do it for themselves. Let everybody do it for themselves at the country level. That's one hope I have. I'll be retired probably, but anyway.
Oh, yes, please go ahead, Patrick.
Sorry, can I add just one thing to this? I totally agree. But if you look, for example, at climate models, we all know that AI is only as good as the training data you use for it. You have to ground truth whatever data, satellite data you put into the system. And you can see there, and this is another problem I think we face from time to time in our projects as well. You can see that a lot of these climate models are based on data that originate really from the global north. And especially if you look then into ground truthing, and if you look into, for example, monitoring stations, you can see really this vast areas of blankness for example, in some parts of Africa. So this is as well something we have to keep in mind when training AI. And related to this as well, even if you look into socioeconomic data for some other AIs that really look more into the effects of climate change on communities, again, a lot of data are coming from the global north. And I think, again, this is really important that if we want to set up robust AI solutions for the global south, we need the data from the global south. And that's, I think, why it's so important to use as well the citizen science approach mentioned. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, Saman, one last comment, and then I'm going to move on if that's okay.
Very quick comment. Very good point, because we are just using AI to train, based on the historical data, usually or often, let's say. One of them is the availability of data. But even the data that are available, are those all realistic? Or, for example, is there any inequality involved in collecting them? Is there any gender bias in the data that we have? Because we are training based on those data, and when we are just have the model ready to use, it's again gender biased. So I'm just pointing out this problem again. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I really thought it was interesting what you mentioned about sort of co-creating and ensuring that the knowledge is not restricted, that it's shared, so that everyone can be involved in developing systems that they use. So very short.
Yes, extremely short. So actually, what we heard here about the data availability, it is nothing that is coming up only because of AI. The data availability has been there always, even without AI, simply because we are so much dependent on the data. Now it is becoming even more important, even more to, actually we need to go to the basics. We have to have station data, measurements coming from every part of the world where we never had before. And even if we try to fill them up with AI approaches, still, it's not the same.
Good point, good point. All right, I'm actually going to come back to you, Elena. So what steps could be or are being taken in the context of those specific projects, so Clint and the Medusa, and then I also want to hear about Agile in a second, to avoid these risks? Are you tackling this directly in any ways, and in which ways?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. So, in parallel to what was already discussed here, so actually the need for infrastructure, the need for internet access, the electricity issues, there are ways actually to avoid this risk or trying to close these gaps. And European projects actually we are obliged to act in that direction. So there are different ways to do that. There's co-creation, which is a flag for European projects, and we are doing that. Communication, knowledge transfer, engaging not only stakeholders but also citizens, training. This is extremely important, and actually what Medusa does is sharing the tools that are prepared in the frame of the project with people, with our partners in Ethiopia and in Egypt, and this comes together with training. So this is one way, one of the ways actually to try and avoid the risk or close the gap, as I said already before, providing the information, taking into consideration, using what the citizens would like to see, what they would like to have at hand. So actually what Laurent was just saying before, the data is there. They are provided in such a easy to use way, but the people should know how to use them. This is extremely important, and it can come only with knowledge transfer and training. Thank you.
Did you have any examples from Clint that you also wanted to share? You mentioned from Medusa working with Ethiopia and Egypt. Course. Anything else?
Yes, of course. So actually, Clint is doing the same, and it's not keeping the climate services only within Europe. So we're starting from the Rhine Delta, from the Douro Basin, the Lake Como, and also the Zambezi watercourse. So it is actually always a knowledge transfer from, I wouldn't like to say that from the north to the south, but it's always a knowledge transfer from within the project.
Both directions, huh?
Exactly, yeah.
Great, okay, thank you. So I want to get another example from Agile. Can you tell me a little bit how you're approaching this within that project or within your other work at UCL?
And thank you very much. Very good question. Let me look at it from a very general perspective. There are some also examples that we are doing actually at Agile. So we talked about several problems that we should address. Actually, all of them almost being addressed within Agile. One of them is inclusive science, or let's say how we can be sure what we are producing is actually going to be used unbiased with the stakeholders. This is going to be addressed with including all the stakeholders as much as can possible. So all the stakeholders, NGOs, governments, academicians within the project with several partners. So we are trying to address the help events within Agile with including all of this. So trying to address unbiased research that can be used actually on the ground. The other one is open science. We are actually doing open science openly. We are developing within Agile a reference library for help events in terms of definitions to how we can use AI for that one. So it's going to be all openly available for everyone. Again, Agile is actually committed to capacity building by providing educations, by educating people how to use these tools that we are developing there. And also the other point should be methodological, because the methodology of AIs with the nature of being black box is another issue. So in Agile, we are trying to achieve the transparency within the models that we are developing. So still, it's ongoing. So we are not sure what type of methods we are going to develop. It's an ongoing project. But from general perspective, definitely we need to address this the responsibility of AI. So we have to have responsible AI in a way. It doesn't matter how you define this responsible AI. We have a general sense of what is responsibility. So it should address transparency. It should be accountable. It should be accessible. It should be not biased. So all of this also methodologically, it's important because we talked about data's accessibility, capacity building, open science. But so what about the methods? The methods themselves should be also responsibly developed. Yeah, thank you.
Very complete list that you gave there. Transparency is something that you and I have discussed in great detail, and also explainability. So clearly you know that I'm on the same bandwagon as you are when it comes to responsible AI. Maria, I'm going to kind of surprise you with a question. In your Eye in the Sky project that you were working on, did you also have any activities to support capacity sharing, training, bridging any divides, or was this not really part of the project?
Yeah, in that project there were some, and for some context, the Eye in Sky project was a project that spurred out of innovation call in Portugal to address the wildfire events that happened in 2017, and this project concluded last year. And we were developing this solution based on high altitude balloons and drones. That allows to use that kind of platform as a means to monitor the wildfires during times of the day that we wouldn't have satellite observations or where planes couldn't fly. And allow the balloon also to be a repeater of communications for firefighters. So there were a lot of consultations with those kind of entities, from civil protection to firefighters that would be the users of those tools, even because, even to enable the protocols to work on that kind of technology solution and to enable the further development of that tool were really critical to develop those solutions. And the idea of developing this balloon with a drone solution was also because it is very cost effective. So it also allows to deploy these kind of resources at a very low cost and serve rural communities with this kind of on-demand sort of solution.
Okay, thank you. No, I, of course, am familiar with your project from our standardization efforts, so I was curious that was an aspect I don't think I had picked your brain on yet. When we move beyond these types of specific projects and look more broadly at efforts to reduce the digital divide and foster responsible AI, to borrow the term from Saman, some of the really exciting efforts that we're seeing include from the Fair Forward initiative, which I've been following closely, which has been accelerating AI research and development in Africa and Southeast Asia, and also helping to develop policy frameworks for ethical AI, data protection and privacy. At the International Telecommunication Union, we see huge efforts being made to provide connectivity, for example, through the Broadband Commission's work. We also see the GIGA initiative working with UNICEF. And then, of course, the WMO's SOF activities are contributing to filling observational gaps. In the context of the focus group on AI for natural disaster management, in which the ITU, WMO, and UNEP partnered together, the resulting technical reports and also complementary activities have also been important in supporting policymakers and transferring knowledge. Of course, climate change AI, which Maria represents, is also very well known for producing educational resources and programs, and also supporting ways to fill gaps in infrastructure and research through funding, tools, and data sets. So I would love to hear actually from all of you on how your organization, in a broader sense, so not just the specific projects that we talked about, but in a more general sense, are actively plugging these capacity gaps. So who would like to take the floor first? Yes, please, go ahead.
I think there's no better partner than the United Nations in doing this worldwide. Of course, I have to promote my organization here, but the truth is that a lot of the good examples that I heard are still related to those projects, to a country or two. Taking these best practices, passing them on to a lot of potential users in every country around the world, that's the big challenge. And I think this is where we really would like you all to work with us to take this in a way broader. We, just as UN Spider, we were in about 60 countries in the last 7-8 years, providing training, capacity building in using these technologies, using Earth observation. When it comes to space technologies, by the way, it's not only about Earth observation, it's also navigation, satellite systems, telecommunications. And so those are all important. We try to raise awareness of what's possible to these countries. Just next week, our colleagues are in Tonga, providing training to climate department, environment, geology, disaster management entities on how to use Google Earth Engine, how to access the NICFI data, how to access subscription-based high-resolution imagery. These are all things that those colleagues there, although they are good experts, a year ago did not know. They did not know these technologies exist. So we would like to take a lot more of these best practices out there. I think doing it with us, with the UN, is the best bet, because we really have that reach. We really can go to the country level together with our sister entities almost everywhere. And I would like to see a lot more of this taken forward. I think these are all good examples, but again, they remain isolated if we are not taking them to most countries that would need it. So we are doing this. Just last week, my director was asking me in another side event here, so how many people did we reach with our capacity building efforts? In the program on space applications in the last 15 years, I made a quick statistic. We had about 14,000 experts that we reached in about 130 countries. These are all workshops and training events that we organized in different domains: environment, disasters, water. But again, this is the reach we talk about, and you want these practices, these best practices really known to all those people. So please work with us. Don't do it in isolation, and I think we will get there. Thank you.
That's really very impressive. Congratulations. I also just wanted to mention, I know that you've been working with the ITU on challenges, GeoAI challenges, which is another great tool for capacity sharing and allowing colleagues to play with data and come up with their own solutions. Did you want to add anything, Elena?
Well, actually, I'm coming from education.
This is true.
We are doing education constantly, continuously. And one of the very good things that our university is doing is having this virtual international program. So actually, we're giving opportunity for students from all other universities to participate and attend our courses. So this is our of contribution when it comes to education. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to actually add to what Laurent just said. So we can see as well in our projects run by the GSZ that the scaling up is becoming more and more important, and we are really putting a lot of effort into this. You mentioned the Fair Forward initiative, which is really focusing on Asia and Africa. For example, they have a sub-project called the High Carbon Stock Approach that was trialed in Indonesia. It is now being rolled out to India and Senegal. Interestingly, this is really about assessing the carbon potential of forests. And rather than just using AI, using the typical, I would say, natural science data, we are now trying to as well put indigenous knowledge, local knowledge into the model, which makes it really much more effective and much more let's say, how can I say, it's much more helpful for people really on the ground to actually assess the carbon potential. We have a similar sub-project there, which is looking into AI-based early warning systems. Again, there we're looking really very much into working with local communities to make sure that whatever we do there is really of use for the local communities. And to be able to do that, and coming then to your question is, we of course have to train people, and so we have rather extensive training systems, training programs, and we do as well work with other organizations like some of the UN bodies to really roll out this. And we do as well work with AI providers and people who actually, or organizations who provide data to actually put into AI. For example, the German Weather Service, which is part of the SOF initiative you mentioned as well. So they're really supporting, for example, weather stations and weather services in different countries in the global south to make sure that the local knowledge is there to actually put together the data that is needed to put into AI. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Saman, did you have anything to add?
Yes, definitely. Coming from a dedicated department to risk and disaster reduction. So at University College London, again, repeating myself, we have a dedicated department for risk and disaster reduction. This means that we are trying to actually educating the future leaders in this field. So it also includes digitalizations, and with a multidisciplinary team coming from different disciplines, from engineering to social science, economy to even history, and including all the, let's say, all the digitalization techniques. It's not only AI, so there are also others. We try to educate students with a BSc in global humanitarian science. We have also masters in disaster and risk resilience with the qualitative perspective, and the risk and disaster science with mainly on digitalization and quantitative science. So we are trying to actually educate students, also including the other ways that we are contributing for capacity building. With our projects like Agile, we are doing trainings, educations. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. And climate change AI. Maria, can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on?
Yeah, of course. At Climate Change AI, capacity building is one of the key parts of what we do. We are a nonprofit that empowers a global community of researchers, practitioners, and decision makers in accelerating the use of AI in service of climate action. And we do this particularly, for instance, through educational programs where we are trying to grow the pool of people and organizations with the capacity, expertise, and leadership ability to really develop solutions in this space. And this is not just recognizing where AI as a tool in being useful, but also that AI is not a silver bullet. It's not a software development problem that we're tackling here. It's a climate problem, and it really requires people to understand all the stakeholders involved in solving that particular problem. And even if AI is the right solution, and even when it is, that it's only one part of the solution as well. We do these educational programs that try to reach people all over the world and cover a wide range of areas that are relevant in climate change mitigation, adaptation, and climate science. We have, over the past couple of years, had over 16,000 people from over 170 countries enroll in our virtual summer school that really tries to democratize the knowledge in this space. And we also have run some leadership training programs that try to train the next generation of leaders at this intersection. And in addition to that, another aspect that we do that is another angle on capacity building is our innovation grants program that tries to bring together experts from machine learning and climate to work together on solutions. And all of these projects end up developing either data sets or tools that once released open source, they will catalyze further impactful work in the community. So it is a big part of also our coordinating role in this ecosystem, where we're really, in essence, trying to help people work better together.
Yes, Patrick, did you want to add one last thing?
Yeah, just one thing that just came to my mind when I heard that. I think we have to be as well very honest when we talk with policymakers, with communities, that AI is not always the right solution as well. So I think we've seen it as well in some project that rather quickly, because it is very much on vogue as well, that people want to develop or use AIs, but there are sometimes solutions out there that work perfectly well without AI. And I think we have to keep that in mind as well. We have to do a good assessment at the beginning whether AI is actually of use or not. But then coming back to your question, so even if you don't use AI, you need a basic digital knowledge, I would say. And I think this is something we have to invest in. And like I said earlier as well, the access even to web-based services, which is in a lot of the countries we work in still a big problem. Thank you.
Thank you for adding that, and thank you, Maria, as well for your information about climate change AI. I'd love to hear from the audience. Given the examples heard from our experts, do you think we're on the right track, or does more need to be done? And if so, what do you think could help plug these gaps? Do you mind changing the slide, please? Great, thank you. And while we're getting the let's say, report card from the audience, we recently had an event during UNDRR's Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on DRR in September. It was a partnership between the ITU Fraunhofer, University of Padua, and APTIM UNESCAP. And the idea was to put together a learning lab on AI for disaster management. So we introduced several concepts on AI through use cases and dialogues. And then we also tried to get feedback from the audience. How useful was this format? Did you learn anything? What could we have done differently next time? So with this information, we really wanted to gauge the effectiveness of our methods and further refine them. And I'm curious, I've heard from several of you, from Laurent, from Maria, exactly how many people have participated in webinars, workshops. But it is challenging sometimes to gauge what people actually take from these events. I was wondering if any of you have found a way to ascertain the effectiveness of these capacity building efforts so that we can also learn something. Yeah, whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. I think we have also as a requirement within the UN, we have to do evaluations of our activities, and that includes, of course, the capacity building ones. So we have regularly distributed survey, let's say, sheets or online surveys after these capacity buildings and trainings. They are anonymous, so we get the feedback. We see what the participants learned. Sometimes they want more. Most of the time, they are happy with what they get. I think it's probably rewarding to see that. So these surveys and this kind of dialogue post-event with the participants is probably the best approach. And then kind of storing that and then analyzing that data to make sure that we are moving in the right direction. We do that constantly, and we have a good, I would say, record of all these trainings going back more than 10 years. Thanks.
It's a fantastic resource. In the interest of time, I might ask us to just keep it super short if we have anything to add.
Yeah,
surveys.
very short. So actually, it is not very different to what Laurent was just saying. During workshops, during these trainings, we try always to receive feedback and see what is happening, how it is received, and what more is required. This is extremely important. Then when we have the people coming back once again, then it is where we see the effectiveness of these measures.
Thank you.
Can I just add one sentence? I'm a big fan of knowledge networks, and I
Hi.
think really if you connect AI experts or even scholars or people who just started really working with AI, if you connect them globally, and I know that there are some networks out there, this is really very successful, I think. Thank you.
Any last words from
Yeah.
Saman or Maria?
Yeah.
No, thank you from my side. Just agreeing with all of
Yeah,
this. Thank you.
okay.
Yeah, in our case, we are able to see, we have different programs for different expertise levels, for instance, or different maturity in the ecosystem. So it's more frequent that we will see people that for them the entry point in this space was the summer school, and then they end up submitting a paper to a workshop, and through that workshop also meet new collaborators and end up, for instance, submitting a grant, right? Like, so we have several different parts of engaging, so that allows us to understand if people are, just a one-off or if they are actually becoming part of the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for providing your feedback. We're going to be looking at that carefully. I just wanted to ask if you go to the very last slide, there's a QR code. If you are interested in learning about any of the projects that were discussed today, Agile, Medusa, the focus group and global initiative at the ITU, please follow that QR code. Otherwise, I'd just like to thank the panelists for your contribution. It was a really nice learning new things about your work in this domain. And of course, thank you as well to the organizers and to the audience for your participation.